Gaza is descending into unprecedented humanitarian catastrophe. A UN-backed body has now confirmed that famine is underway, describing scenes of mass starvation and disease driven by Israeli restrictions and ongoing warfare. Over 60,000 civilians have been killed, most of them women and children. And even Israeli human rights groups are now declaring that a genocide is taking place. As Israel's so-called tactical pauses prove hollow, the international community is faced with an uncomfortable truth. The occupation army's campaign has pushed Gaza past the brink. How far will this go, and who will stop it? Meanwhile, Donald Trump's diplomatic spectacle in Scotland has sparked global debate. Welcoming Britain's new Prime Minister and securing a controversial trade framework with the EU, Trump showcased his dominance in optics and negotiation alike. He dramatically slashed his own deadline for Vladimir Putin to pursue peace in Ukraine and, for the first time, acknowledged the existence of famine in Gaza, effectively rebuking Netanyahu's denial. But are these gestures real shifts or carefully calculated political theater? Did Trump succeed to draw the image of the peacemaker that he wanted to be in his second term? Let's get in focus. The New York Times reports that a UN-backed food security body, the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, has warned that famine is unfolding across much of Gaza, describing it as a worst-case scenario. The group cited severe Israeli restrictions on aid and access, particularly from March to May, as the key drivers behind widespread starvation. 1 in 3 Gazans is reportedly going days without food, while malnutrition and disease continue to rise. Though Israel has recently introduced limited pauses in military attacks and resumed aid airdrops, the IPC says that these steps fall short as access remains dangerous and aid insufficient. According to the New York Times, many Palestinians are forced to walk miles through unsafe areas to reach food, often risking gunfire. Meanwhile, a controversial new distribution system run by the U.S.-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation has drawn criticism for bypassing UN agencies and relying on private contractors. Over 60,000 people have been killed by Israel and Gaza since the war began, with hunger compounding the already dire humanitarian crisis. According to the Washington Post, 2 leading Israeli rights groups have for the first time accused the Israeli government of committing genocide in Gaza. Their reports cite deliberate intent by Israeli decision-makers to target civilians and destroy Gaza's health and food systems. The groups highlighted military actions, political rhetoric, and policies such as restricting humanitarian aid and medical evacuations. Israeli officials rejected the accusations as baseless and claimed that they reflect efforts to defend against Hamas, not civilians. The reports follow growing global concern over hunger in Gaza, where the health ministry says 14 people died of malnutrition in just 24 hours. While Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu denied a starvation crisis, current U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking from Scotland, appeared to contradict him, saying that children in starvation images look very hungry and calling for U.S. food aid centers. Despite recent increases in aid trucks, UN officials warned that the floor is still far below what's needed to stop widespread malnutrition. For more analysis, we're joined from occupied Jerusalem by Mrs. Ratiba Natsha. She is the Palestinian National Action Committee member. Welcome to Q News, Mrs. Ratiba. The UN-backed body IPC has confirmed that famine thresholds have been reached across most of Gaza. What does this mean legally and morally for the international community, and who bears responsibility?
Finally, they recognize that we have a serious situation in Gaza, and this has happened when people started to die in a daily pace caused by hunger in Gaza. This means that, according to the international law, Israel is using starvation as a weapon to genocide and kill people, and it uses it as a collective punishment, and this action is against the international law. And now they can put maybe a measurement for these genocide and stop, or maybe having some tools to stop what is happening. But to ignore all of these actions or cancellations from these bodies, Israel attended as if they are entering some aids to Gaza now, and they want to serve people. And it's like a mobilization for the international community at all. And this is a play that is Israel playing since 22 months till now, by trying to use the sensitive meanings of the word in the international law to turn out of these words, and to find a way to get out from punishment and find excuses to what it's doing in Gaza during the 22 months ago. So I think that this report come very late, and I think these measurements in the international organization must change, because what happens in Gaza doesn't look like anything that we know or witness in the modern life. And I think that we need to re-put these measurements and these words again to describe what is happening in Gaza, and to use it as a new scale of describing what is happening, and to find a solution for these or contributions to find a solution for these problems in Gaza and other places, crisis places, because we don't need to have like more than 400 people dying in a daily pace to recognize that we have like a starvation in the fifth level in Gaza Strip. It's enough to see what we are witnessing, and what is happening in Gaza, to stop all of these actions.
Yes. Now, Israeli rights groups say that Israel is committing genocide. Coming from within Israeli society, how powerful are these statements, and what significance might they carry internationally and inside Israel?
Actually, even if these sounds come from inside the Israeli community, still they fight these voices, and we all see what happens to Ofer Kasif, a member of a Knesset, the Israeli parliament, when he tried to put things in its names in the Knesset, they kick him out. Although he is Israeli, although he is a member of the parliament, although he is Jewish as well. So I think that this government is trying to shut mouths, mouths and minds of the people in Israel, and they want to even look the media and the pictures from them. And I think that one of the Knesset member replied to Ofer Kasif when he names what happened in Gaza as a genocide, that we must cut the internet from Gaza, so no pictures will come out from Gaza, and there's no need to mention what is happening, and it's better to hide in it. So I think that this government is insisting to use these tools of killing people by starvation and by killing them by the attacks in the Gaza strips, and they are targeting not the fighters. It's very clear that they are targeting children, they are targeting the civilians and the hunger people who are looking forward for the aids and way of living in Gaza. So I think that they insist to make a genocide in Palestine in general and specifically in Gaza, and they will to hide in it than to stop it.
Mhm. The three-day UN conference for recognizing Palestinian statehood as part of peaceful settlement to end the war on Gaza that France and Saudi Arabia called for kicked off yesterday. Today was the second day of the conference. What are your expectations from this conference, especially after the UK announced intention to recognize Palestinian state?
I think recognizing Palestine is the first step, but still we need some more steps towards making these organizations as a real state of the Palestinian people in their homeland. So I think they must start to think or rethink about supporting Israel and put limits for this way of ignoring the international conciliations that Israel is continuing to ignore them since 77 years till now. So I think it's the first step. It's a very good step. It's a very good turning to the forward in the mindset and the speech of the international committee and the European country specifically, but still we need more actions to make it a reality, not just a organization for a state that have no border or no chance to establish by the growth of settlement. And today they even said, the Israeli government, that they are planning to build more settlements in Gaza Strip. So they will even took control on the Gaza Strip, not just the West Bank. So recognizing Palestine is a good step, but it needs so many other steps to make it a reality.
Mm-hmm. US President Donald Trump, for the very first time, has acknowledged that there is starvation in Gaza, effectively debunking Netanyahu's denial. How do you interpret this, and how do you think this shift will affect Israel's calculus?
I don't think that it will affect the calculus between Israel and the United States.
Mm-hmm.
We all witness that the United States is really controlled by the IPAC, the Israeli lobby, in its even decisions. And the real well is not to the White House. The real well is to Netanyahu now. And he's the one who owned the word to what happened and what not happened. But I think that it seems that Donald Trump have finally some time to look to the news and to see these pictures of people who are dying in Gaza. And he got shocked because the only resource of information for him was Benjamin Netanyahu, not the media and not even the counselor in the White House. So I think that it will not give a real sign for any improvement, this statement. And I think that it's maybe a kind of playing a roles between Israel and the United States to keep this war as long as possible by entering some aids and to maybe not allowing a real statement or a real action to be taken in this 3 days conference in the United Nations these days.
Well, that was Mrs. Ratiba Nacha, Palestinian National Action Committee member. Thank you so much for your valuable insights, and it's always a pleasure having you with us. During his visit to Scotland, US President Donald Trump acknowledged for the very first time that there is real starvation in Gaza, urging Israel to allow every ounce of food into the territory, according to the Guardian newspaper. In a notable shift, Trump contradicted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who had denied that hunger was being caused by Israel's blockade. The remarks came during Trump's meeting with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer at Thornbury, where Starmer reportedly pressed him on the worsening humanitarian crisis. Trump also said that Israel bore a lot of responsibility and expressed frustration that aid is not reaching those in need. Meanwhile, aid agencies report that recent Israeli measures to allow limited aid are insufficient and looting of trucks by starving civilians continues. Trump also discussed Ukraine, warning that he would impose sanctions on Russia's trading partners within days if there is no ceasefire. He also shortened his 50-day deadline for Russia to get serious about peace with Ukraine to 10 to 12 days from now. For more analysis, we're joined from Washington by Mrs. Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst. Welcome to Qnews, Mrs. Ginger. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump recently acknowledged famine in Gaza, contradicting, of course, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Given his previous alignment with Israel and harsh stance on aid, how significant is this shift, and could it mark a turning point in U.S. policy on Gaza?
Well, thank you, Hala, for having me today. And greetings to your viewers. And actually, Donald Trump's acknowledgement of the starvation in Gaza is a half measure because it has become unavoidable between the media reports and the footage we're seeing from Gaza and the international outcry from every other nation in the world has put America and President Trump in a situation where Trump can no longer deny the starvation and however, he has not acknowledged the killing that has happened. He has not acknowledged the concentration camps where the American Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, along with the IDF, are using food as bait to lure people out where they are then killed by the IDF. So Trump has acknowledged the starvation. However, it is because he is forced to, he can no longer ignore it. Most notably, he is not acknowledging the ongoing crimes, the ongoing humanitarian crisis, the lack of electricity, medicine, in addition to lack of food and water. And indeed, we saw President Trump boycott the 3-day conference occurring right now at the United Nations. This conference is very significant because the speakers are calling for action instead of just words and resolutions. Now is the time to act, and we are running out of time. And it is very disappointing to the American people that President Trump is trapped by the Israeli lobby. We want him to do more, but he is unable to. He is trapped, and he looks miserable.
Interesting point. While in Scotland, Trump also cut the deadline for Putin to move towards a Ukraine peace deal from 50 days to just less than 2 weeks. What message does this send to Moscow, and does it signal real frustration or political posturing, if we may say?
Well, once again, Trump is confused. He mentioned at that same meeting with Starmer in the UK that he thought 4 or 5 times he had a deal with Russia, and then it falls through. Trump is ignoring that Russia has been very consistent. Putin has had the same demands the entire 3 years of the Ukraine conflict. No missiles, no NATO missiles on the Russian border, denazification, demilitarization, and equal human rights for the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. Trump, his original 50-day deadline, it appeared that he was trying to buy time to decide what to do to calm down Lindsey Graham, to calm down the war hawks in his cabinet. However, yesterday's announcement that now he's shortening the time to 2 weeks, 10 days. What we are asking in America is 10 days, and then what? What are we going to do that we have not already done? Yes, and these threats of secondary sanctions, these are going to paint America and Trump into a corner he cannot get out of, because these sanctions are only going to hurt America. They're going to hurt our trading partners in the European Union, Germany is deindustrializing. Energy costs have quadrupled in some places in the EU because of their cutting off their supply of cheap Russian energy. And indeed, we are seeing this nexus between Israel and Iran and Russia and Iran, because what it is appearing is that um, we see Israel becoming closer with England as far as Israel and their Greater Israel Project is concerned. And at the same time, with respect to Russia, we are seeing our own CIA, our State Department, along with British MI6 and Mossad, are increasing our activity in Azerbaijan and in Armenia. So while we are saying we want peace talks with Russia and we want a negotiation to the nuclear file with Iran, we are going in through the back door in northern Iran through Azerbaijan. This is like a 2-4, two birds with one stone, because we can cause civil unrest in Iran. At the same time, we're causing more unrest and insecurity on Russia's southern border. And indeed, these two conflicts are tied together because we are seeing the United States push the Abraham Accords as a vehicle for peace in the Middle East, but it is becoming apparent that the Abraham Accords are a vehicle for Israeli and American hegemony. What we are seeing is we are destabilizing countries like Syria, demilitarizing them, destabilizing them, and forcing them into the Abraham Accords, where they are subjugated to Israeli hegemony. And this is going to spread to Lebanon. The ultimate goal is Iran, and England and the EU want to use Iran as another pressure point on Russia. Iran and China are pillars of Russia. So if we can take out Iran, we can weaken Russia, because we're losing in Ukraine. And once we can weaken Russia through Iran, then we can focus on taking out China. So what we are seeing is unbridled aggression. America is out of control. Donald Trump appears helpless to stop it. And the European Union's agenda with weakening Russia.
I want to elaborate on that, Mrs. Ginger. Speaking of the European Union, Trump said that he secured a massive trade deal with the EU, but critics say that it's a thin framework with few clear concessions. Is this a genuine policy success for Trump, in your own opinion?
Well, we're seeing that Trump is confusing deals with agreements. And a deal is an arrangement worked out between two parties. An agreement is a negotiated, thought out plan that also involves the cooperation of other parties in order to push the agreement forward and make sure there's compliance. And indeed, what we are seeing when Mark Rutte came from NATO a couple of weeks ago, and with Ursula von der Leyen, we are seeing the European come to Donald Trump and flatter him. It appears that flattery is his weak point, and all of this flattery is making Trump believe that he is accomplishing these deals. As you have noted, Hala, these deals are very loose frameworks. They are not detailed agreements, and it looks like the EU, the European Union, has just become the largest vassal state of America. Indeed, we cannot really supply them with the energy they need. And what we are doing is, as they're becoming energy poor, we are taking their businesses. They're deindustrializing. We're luring their businesses to America. This is also what we're doing with Taiwan. We say we want to protect Taiwan. They have the semiconductor chip industry that we value, yet we see Donald Trump luring the Taiwanese semiconductor chip industry to America, which will weaken Taiwan economically. So we have a very chaotic strategy that undermines our allies, that weakens our trading partners, and
But it's
ultimately these.
confusing for me, Mrs. Ginger, because the press described that meeting between President Donald Trump and Ursula von der Leyen, saying that Trump ate von der Leyen for breakfast, which indicated that the deals were in favor of the United States rather than the EU, and many European officials criticized the deal. How do you see it?
Well, we are seeing Trump push through one-sided deals. He says this is to make up for decades of the United States being on the short end of the deal. However, and to say that Trump ate von der Leyen's lunch, once again, we're seeing the European Union leaders, none of whom are elected by the European people. For example, Ursula von der Leyen has never been elected. She is appointed. She answers to Brussels, not the European people, who are becoming increasingly angry. We're seeing these populist movements gain power, which is why the leaders are running scared of their own people. They're desperate to show any sort of progress. So Ursula von der Leyen walks home with a deal in hand. It appears to be a success for her, for Trump. They each appear to get what they want, but these are very shallow deals that do not address any of the root causes that are creating the conflicts. So these may be hollow victories. And once again, for example, the deal Trump got with NATO, for them to increase spending to 5% of GDP in exchange for ongoing weapons flow to Ukraine. This deal was bad for Trump because they don't increase their spending to 5% until 2030, 2 years after Trump is out of office. So we have no way to enforce that. The only result is Europe got what they wanted, which is more American weapons flowing to Ukraine. Trump looks good because he says now they're paying us for them. But in the long run, this continues to damage the United States and Europe. Ukraine is continuing to lose men on the battlefield. They're continuing to lose territory. Russia will press ahead on the battlefield because that is the only thing they can do. They have no negotiating partners left in the United States or in Europe. And as we see in the Middle East, the entire world is going to move ahead without America and Israel because we have bullied them into submission. Once again, we're using the Abraham Accords as a stealth tool. It masquerades as a peace agreement, but is really a vehicle for military hegemony. So yes, you are correct, Hala. This is very confusing. It's very chaotic. Part of it is Trump is no longer living up to the promises he campaigned on. His voters and supporters see that he has been captured by the Israeli lobby and also by the neocons in his government. And the American people, actually, Trump's poll numbers are dropping with his most important voters, the young people that came to him as an alternative, the working class, minorities, ethnic groups. So he is dropping in the polls. At the same time, other America First candidates, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, they're all stepping up, and we are seeing Trump's base flock to them.
Okay.
So this is also setting up a civil war between America First and, surprisingly, Trump and the Israeli lobby on the other side, as we've seen the silencing of the pro-peace members of his cabinet. We see Tulsi Gabbard has been sidelined. And the other thing I would like to mention is we saw the turning point was in March when Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump, they had worked out negotiations with Hamas in exchange for the hostages, a clear, defined path towards a lasting peace beyond the end of the slaughter, the conflict in Gaza. And in March, suddenly Trump adopted Netanyahu's view and said, no, we're not negotiating an end to the war. We are just going to have a 60-day ceasefire. We're just going to have a few hostages. returned. So essentially, something happened in March where Trump adopted
Which brings
Netanyahu's.
me to my final question to you, Mrs. Ginger, because from threatening secondary sanctions on Russia to floating food distribution in Gaza, Trump is presenting himself as a problem solver, an advocate of peace. Is this genuine diplomacy or an attempt to serve his previous promises to end all wars once he returns to office?
Well, it appears to be more than just lip service to his previous positions and his previous promises. Um, it appears that he is saying that he wants to end these wars, but he does not accept that we are belligerents in this war. So Trump is trying to act in the role of a peace broker, a negotiator. At the same time, we are supplying weapons and we are an active participant.
Yes.
And this internal conflict is becoming too much for him to live up to both sides. That is why we're seeing the chaos. He cannot play two roles. He cannot serve two masters.
Exactly.
The result is chaos and confusion.
Yes. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Mrs. Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Always a pleasure having you with us here on Q News. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's episode of In Focus. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.